Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of Starlink 11-1 mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base, Space Launch Complex 4 East from the West Coast. We hope you all are doing fine. Hello, my name is Dipta Maitra, performing the commentary for today's mission launch. And we are super excited bringing you the coverage of SpaceX 77th overall launch and the 74th Falcon 9 launch of this year. We are here again to witness the fifth launch of SpaceX workhorse, the Falcon 9, since its last mission failure, that is Starlink 9-3 mission. Today's launch marks the first launch of Starlink Group 11. We are awaiting for a Falcon 9 liftoff at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time from California for a southeasterly launch for SpaceX Starlink mission. The Starlink mission 11-1 will launch 23 Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. Today's Starlink mission marks SpaceX's amazing 369th overall launch. This will be the 54th dedicated Starlink mission of the year for SpaceX. Prior to today's launch, SpaceX has launched 1,178 Starlink satellites so far, over 53 flights this year, and overall 6,828 Starlink satellites to date. Before getting into mission details, just some quick updates. The launch attempt of Northrop Grumman Cygnus NG-21 cargo spacecraft to the International Space Station from Cape Canaveral on Saturday, August 3rd was scrubbed due to ongoing poor weather conditions in Florida. NASA and SpaceX are now targeting the launch of Northrop Grumman Cygnus NG-21 on Sunday, August 4th, that is today, with the instantaneous launch window at 11:02 a.m. Eastern Time. Although yesterday we did had a 50% probability of launch violation, the weather conditions will be worse today due to tropical storms Debbie at the east coast, at the west coast Category 1 Hurricane Carlota, and another tropical storm Daniel. As a result, today's launch attempt has a 90% probability of violation and only a 10% favorable outlook for the Cygnus NG-21 launch attempt. Now everything is at the mercy of the weather, but let's hope for the best. And with this change in the launch attempt day for the Cygnus NG-21 cargo spacecraft, the rendezvous and the capture of Northrop Grumman Cygnus spacecraft at the International Space Station has been rescheduled. The capture is now scheduled for approximately 3:10 a.m. Eastern Daytime on August 6th, which was previously on August 5th. As of August 3rd reports, Boeing confidence remains high in Starliner's return with the crew based on an abundance of testing conducted by the Boeing space teams and NASA in space and on the ground as well. A landing date for Starliner crew flight test will be scheduled following the flight test readiness review planned for later next week, while landing opportunities are available throughout August. On your screen, you can see the status of the test being conducted by the teams from Boeing Space and NASA. Meanwhile, the Starliner crew and the ground teams completed a test of the spacecraft's reaction control system thrusters on July 27th. The jets were fired for short bursts, one at a time, to provide data for analysis of the systems. Preliminary results from the July 27th Starliner test show all the tested thrusters are back to pre-flight levels based on thrust and chamber pressure. Starliner's propulsion system also maintains redundancy and the helium levels remain stable. The data also supports root cause assessments for the helium and the thrust issues and the flight rationale for Starliner and its crew return to Earth, which is a promising sign. Teams will now evaluate these results of the test firings over the next few days as they work through overall studies ahead of an agency readiness review. If time permits, we will be discussing about this in more details. Moving on with some more updates. NASA and SpaceX stated SpaceX Crew 9 targets the launch date of August 18, with the window extending to the early September. There are some outstanding certification work that needs to be completed before SpaceX can launch a crewed mission, following the Falcon 9's Starlink 9-3 mission failure back on July 11th. Regarding Polaris Dawn mission, Sarah Walker, Director of Dragon Mission Management for SpaceX, stated that they are still holding a late summer slot for the launch, with no specific date yet mentioned. Also, from the Crew 9 news conference, we got to know that Crew 10 will fly in February 2025 and Starliner 1 in August 2025, double booked with Crew 11. And lastly, the much anticipated US ISS spacewalk 90 and 91, still no further schedules being provided by NASA. Just a quick note, it's me only managing the launch coverages on my own, so if we face any technical issues, please bear with me and be tuned in. I will be doing my best to guide you through the Falcon 9 rocket launch happening in some minutes. Before moving on, would like to welcome one of our closest friend and the moderator over here, Fairmate. Welcome, Fairmate. Hope you are doing well today, and thanks for those information regarding the Gilmore space. We are truly thankful to you because you took time to send those information and links to us for further research on them. So thanks for that once again. And we hope that today you will be enjoying the stream. Now let's get back to today's mission. So far, SpaceX reports that the weather is looking average, with an inclination towards the good side for today's Falcon 9 launch opportunity, and the range is ready to support. However, they recently adjusted their liftoff time, which was previously 12:24 a.m. Pacific time. Right now they are targeting 12:47 a.m. Pacific time, so they just adjusted it about 20 minutes. However, with two storms Hurricane Carlota and Tropical Storm Daniel moving in the Pacific Ocean. I'm unsure how much weather reported by SpaceX is justified. Additionally, for Vandenberg flights, no explicit weather reports are published either by the 45th Weather Squadron or SpaceX. The National Hurricane Center, in its 2 p.m. Pacific Daytime update, forecast a slower westward to west northwestward motion of the storms during the next few days. And Daniel, the tropical storm formed in the far western East Pacific on Saturday morning, is expected to be a short-lived storm. But anyways, we hope that they are able to launch on time and not have to push too far. But if for some reason we don't launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, that is Monday, August 5th, with launch window opening at 12:24 a.m. Eastern Time. SpaceX is currently targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Vandenberg Space Force Base at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time. Just excuse me, I think I'm saying the wrong time. Actually, the time remains the same. It is now targeting at 3:24 a.m. Eastern Time and 12:24 a.m. Pacific Time, which corresponds to 7:24 a.m. UTC on Sunday, that is August 4th. Please pardon me for the previous miscommunication. Now, firstly, we would like to thank all of you joining us for today's launch. We express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone for being a part of today's stream. Really appreciate you being here. A big thanks to our amazing YouTube community for being here for today's launch and supporting us as we provide detailed coverage of space launches, complete with extensive statistics and thorough insights. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at today's payload details for Starlink Group 11-1 mission. This launch marks the 54th dedicated Starlink launch for this year. Starlink satellites are built at SpaceX Satellite Development Facility in Redmond, Washington. And today's launch consists of 23 version 2 mini satellites. The version 2 variant of Starlink is too large to fit inside a Falcon 9 fairing and is meant to be launched by Starship. To address the issue, SpaceX modified the original version 2 blueprint into a smaller, more compact one named version 2 mini. SpaceX also indicated they would build satellites of second generation constellation in two different but technically identical form factors. One with the physical structures tailored to launch on Falcon 9, that is the version 2 mini, and another tailored for the launch on Starship, that is version 2. Each Starlink satellite is equipped with powerful 5 advanced Ku band phased array antennas and 3 dual band parabolic antennas utilizing Ka and E bands to provide increased capacity. Together, these antennas utilizes Ku, Ka and E band frequencies, allowing Starlink to provide high bandwidth connectivity, that is the 4 times more capacity per satellite than earlier versions. Each satellite features a dual solar array with a size of 52.5 square meters, which unfurls to a wingspan of 100 feet. The two solar arrays are also aeroneutral, which enable faster on-orbit maneuvers. Also, it has a high-capacity battery to provide power to the payloads. Each Starlink satellite contains 3 space laser transponders, that is optical inter-satellite links or ISLS for intercommunications, which operates at up to 200 Gbps, which together across the constellation form a global internet mesh that can connect customers anywhere in the world. This also enables the spacecraft to transmit data without local ground station, providing truly global coverage. Each Starlink version 2 mini satellite weighs nearly 800 kilograms, that is 1763 pounds. Starlink satellites are equipped with efficient ion Hall effect thrusters powered by argon, enabling them to raise orbit, maneuver in space, and deorbit at the end of their useful life. Starlink was the first spacecraft to use Krypton propelled and later switched to argon Hall effect thrusters for cost effectiveness. With this switch, Starlink became the first spacecraft to use argon propulsion in space. Now definitely this raises the question that how much the switch affects the cost. And the answer to that, relative to Krypton, the argon required to fuel Starlink version 2 satellite is practically free. To put it into perspective, just consider fueling the next constellation of nearly 30,000 version 2 satellites could cost SpaceX less than fueling 4,000 version 1 satellites which were based on Krypton. Additionally, SpaceX claims that its second generation thrusters using argon has 2.4 times the thrust and 1.5 times the specific impulse of the previously Krypton fueled thrusters. Today's payload will be placed in an orbit with an altitude of 279 kilometers and with an inclination of 53.16 degrees. But here is the thing I would like to mention. As of now, we found that this altitude and inclination details to be the most relevant and accurate, but in real it may differ as today's launch is the first launch of Starlink Group 11. Post today's launch, we will be getting the most accurate and trustworthy details for the orbital placement and will be reflected in our future streams. Now Starlink uses custom-built navigation sensors named Star Tracker that surveys the stars to determine each satellite's location, altitude, and orientation for best possible broadband throughput. Each Starlink satellite contains 4 reaction wheels which provide agile attitude control for the vehicle. The hot spare configuration ensures high reliability operation, and its aluminum flywheel is fully demisable at the end of life. Also worth mentioning, the Starlink satellites are equipped with an onboard autonomous collision avoidance system for avoiding collisions with other spacecrafts and space junk autonomously, which utilizes the US Department of Defense debris tracking database. With the recent inclusion of Sierra Leone and Madagascar, let's take a look at the countries where Starlink's low latency, high speed internet is now available. As of now, the current status, Starlink is delivering its high speed, low latency internet service to more than 100 countries and territories. Now let's take a look at the flight record for the booster supporting today's Starlink 11-1 mission. The booster with tail number 1082 supporting this mission, which is a quite young booster with 5 previous flights in its record, including missions like USSF 62, a national security mission for the United States Space Force, a space service branch of United States Armed Forces, which is also a part of Department of Air Force, led by the Secretary of Air Force. Also, the booster previously supported 4 Starlink missions. The booster made its debut with the Starlink Group 7-9 mission from Vandenberg on January 3rd, 2024. It is evident how new this booster is, with an age of just 7 months and 1 day. The last mission supported by today's booster was Starlink Group 9-1 from here at Vandenberg on 19th of June this year. It's now 46 days since last used. The booster with tail number 1082 supporting today's mission has all its previous flights from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California only. Previously, with Starlink Group 10-3 launch on June 27 from Cape Canaveral, SpaceX once again achieved a record. For the first time, a Falcon booster with tail number 1062 launched for record-breaking 22nd time. And the same booster previously set a record with its 21st flight for SpaceX. Now let's have a look at the bar graphs showing number of Falcon 9 launches each year. Before today's launch, SpaceX completed 73 launches of Falcon 9 so far this year as part of its milestone. With recent Starlink 10-3 mission launch, 10-6 mission launch from Space Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida on 2nd August. That was the fourth launch since Starlink 9-3 mission failure. This year's launch count already surpasses the total number of Falcon 9 launches from all the years leading up to 2022, and they are now targeting the number of launches made in 2023. With the previous Starlink 9-1 mission launch from here at Vandenberg, SpaceX equaled the number of launches from 2022. Now with today's launch of Starlink Group 11-1 mission, the bar graph depicts 74 Falcon 9 launches so far this year, which is 13 more than the launches made in 2022. They have already done more than half as many launches as they did all last year, and it's only been 7 months and 4 days of this year. Due to the loss of Starlink 9-3 mission, followed by the Falcon 9 being grounded by the FAA investigations, SpaceX lagged by 15 days, which affected their spectacular launch cadence. But still, at this pace, they are well on track to achieve their ambitious goal of 140 to 148 launches by the end of this year. Now SpaceX will really push hard, being desperate enough to achieve their big goals, considering the gap of complete 15 days with no launches. SpaceX already launched 3 times within 40 hours, just 2 weeks after Starlink 9-3 mission failure. SpaceX is making a strong effort to reach their significant commitments and objectives. SpaceX achieved a significant milestone with this year's 50th launch during the previous Starlink 8-7 mission. This is just 2 more than half of last year's Falcon 9 launches, which totaled 48. With the recent Starlink 10-6 mission launch, they have now conducted 25 more launches than half of last year's total. We recently witnessed the 4th integrated flight test of Starship on June 6th, and SpaceX is now awaiting for the 5th one, tentatively scheduled for early August, according to Elon's previous tweet. But 3 days of this month have already passed, and there is no further update regarding Starship's next flight. But we hope that the issue with Falcon 9 and the license modification for the Super Heavy Boosters catch attempt by the launch tower from the Federal Aviation Administration, that is the FAA, won't affect the schedule. Now we have a request. If you haven't already, consider giving this video a like. It really helps YouTube's algorithm to bring in more space fans and rocket enthusiasts. And if you are feeling we are adding value to your viewing experience, consider subscribing to us. We would be super grateful for your support. Now please allow us a couple of seconds to check whether the launch is on time or not and to stay updated. But be tuned in here. We'll be right back in just few seconds. So far it seems like SpaceX is sticking with their liftoff time of 12:24 a.m. Pacific time, 3:24 a.m. Eastern time, which corresponds to 7:24 a.m. UTC on Sunday, that is August 4th. Let's go ahead as we progress through the countdown and review the milestones that lie ahead for us on this Vandenberg flight. At T-minus 38 minutes, countdown begins at this point when SpaceX launch director gives the go for the start of propellant load. If everything looks fine, prop load begins at T-minus 30 minutes mark with the loading of rocket grade kerosene or RP1 on board the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. At the same time, LOX load, that is super chill liquid oxygen, is loaded on board the first stage. At T-minus 16 minutes, which will be the next event that we are looking for here, that's when the second stage liquid oxygen load begins. At T-minus 7 minutes, that's when the chill down of 9 Merlin engines gets underway. It involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen loading through the plumbing and turbopumps, which helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damages during the startup sequence. At about 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full, and in a T-minus 4 minutes and a half, the strong back retract sequence begins. The process begins with the clamp arms underneath the payload fairing opening up, followed by the transporter ejector or strong back reclining about a degree and a half, about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9. It remains in that position until liftoff. It's when it rapidly pulls back to clear the way for the Falcon 9 rocket's vertical ascent. Just for a quick knowledge, you might be knowing that the strong back reclining process at Vandenberg differs from that at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. Here at Vandenberg, we recline the strong back 13 degrees away, whereas at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center, we recline the strong back about a degree and a half from the Falcon 9. The strong back positioned alongside the vehicle, also referred as a transporter ejector, fulfills multiple functions. It supplies propellants, provides air conditioning, pressurization gases, and electrical power. Additionally, it transports the Falcon 9 to the launch pad and positions it for the launch. Here is an image on your screen showing how a strong back or the transporter ejector transports the rockets. Although on your screen you are watching Falcon Heavy being transported, but the process is same for the Falcon 9 as well. Now coming back to the timeline, at the T-minus 3 minutes mark, the first stage liquid oxygen loading should be complete, followed by the second stage liquid oxygen loading wrapping up at T-minus 2 minutes mark. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. At T-minus 1 minute, the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. In the final 60 seconds of countdown, the control of the flight system, that is, the launch sequence, is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. If everything looks good, at T-minus 45 seconds mark, the SpaceX launch director will give the final go for Falcon 9's liftoff. Now at T minus 3 seconds, the engine ignition sequence start command being issued by the onboard engine controller. Finally, at T0 we will have the liftoff. If all 9 Merlin 1D engines ignite and are healthy, flight computers will give the command for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9. Currently targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Vandenberg Space Force Base at 3:24 am Eastern Time, 12:24 am Pacific Time, which corresponds to 7:24 am UTC on Sunday, that is August 4th. Let's go ahead and briefly step through the trajectory for today's Starlink mission. Falcon 9 leaving the pad from Space Launch Complex 4 East from Vandenberg Space Force Base with the spacecraft on board the batch of 23 Starlink satellites for a southeast trajectory along the coast of Southern California, heading into a low Earth orbit, that is to the 11th shell of second generation Starlink mega constellation, indicated by that green line on your screen. Today's launch marks the first launch of Starlink Group 11. The red line you see on your screen indicates where Falcon 9 first stage will land after stage separation, just a little later, leaving California's coast. This is going to be a off the land landing, a drone ship landing using autonomous spaceport drone ship named Of Course I Still Love You here on the west coast, which means that the first stage booster with tail number 1082 supporting today's mission, flying for its 6th time, will be returning heading out to the drone ship for landing. This will be the 98th successful landing on Of Course I Still Love You drone ship to date. The estimated booster recovery is approximately 627 kilometers, with estimated fairing recovery approximately 703 kilometers downrange, and the stage 2 debris re-entry will be in the East Pacific. Currently there are 3 in SpaceX drone ship fleet. We anticipate the addition of a 4th drone ship possibly occurring late this year or in early next year. Out of 3, just read the instructions. A shortfall of gravitas are based in Florida. And another, Of Course I Still Love You, here at California. Recently, with the Falcon 9's return to flight on the Starlink 10-9 mission launch, a new member joined the SpaceX recovery vessel fleet on its inaugural mission, completing the fairing recovery sea trials. That is the Go Cosmos recovery vessel. On your screen you can see an image of the recovery vessel Go Cosmos, and with the Starlink 10-6 mission from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, it now has supported 2 missions so far. The two halves of the payload fairing will be recovered slightly farther downrange, approximately 76 kilometers downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. After they will smoothly splash down with the guidance of parachutes, and SpaceX will utilize a recovery vessel to retrieve them from the Pacific waters. SpaceX manufactures the fairing in-house with a total cost of two halves is nearly $6 million. No wonder that SpaceX aims to recover the fairings for repetitive use, mirroring their approach with rocket boosters, upholding the motto of reusability and sustainability. SpaceX has dedicated years of effort to the recovery and reuse of payload fairings. You can see on your screen how a fairing recovery operation looks like. Although the recovery vessel on your screen is Doug performing the recovery operations, but today's supporting recovery vessel here in Pacific is Go Beyond. Other recovery vessels, Go Cosmos and Doug, are currently awaiting its next assignment, and the recovery vessel Bob will be supporting the upcoming CRS, that is the Commercial Resupply Services Cygnus NG-21 mission from Cape today. Hopefully the weather will be favorable, although as mentioned before, right now we are having a status of 90% probability of violation for today's launch for the Cygnus NG-21 mission. SpaceX has named its other two recovery ships Bob and Doug after Bob Bacon and Doug Hurley, the two NASA astronauts and the first crew SpaceX launched for NASA under Commercial Crew Program on the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station back in 2020. Also, May 30th this year marked the 4th anniversary of Falcon 9 launching NASA's Demo 2 mission to the space station, returning human spaceflight to the United States. Since then, Dragon has carried 49 people into orbit. Now SpaceX is gearing up for the Cygnus NG-21 Commercial Resupply Services mission for today, and on August 18th it will launch Crew 9's 4 astronauts. Before moving on, would like to welcome Pop Tripika, one of our moderator and close friend here. Welcome Pop Tripika. Yes, it's another late night launch, and as far the weather suggests, I think it will be a little foggy, so during the launch it will be, I'm not sure although, but it will be a foggy condition, and that glow of Falcon 9's ignition will be spectacular. I think you saw that slow motion of Raptor engines about which you are talking, or maybe I'm getting confused with. But if possible, please send us the link. We will also have a look on that. Now here is a short video of the fairing separation and MBAG ignition. You can see how the fairing half separates, exposing the payload on board the second stage to space, and the MBAG engine ignition. Another short video of a fairing half. You know that protective shell from a rocket's payload. on its way back home, plunging through the Earth's atmosphere. This mesmerizing halo around it that makes it really a sight to behold. We hope you enjoyed these two amazing short clips. Now, if you feel like we are adding value to your viewing experience, please consider giving this video a like. It really helps YouTube's algorithm bringing in more space fans and helps them to discover this stream out. Also consider about smashing the subscribe button and turning on the bell notification as we work hard to bring you detailed streams with stats and insights. And for that, we would be super grateful for your support. Now let's have a quick look through the post-launch timeline for the Falcon 9 rocket passing these events following liftoff. At t plus 1 minute and 7 seconds, Falcon 9 will pass through max Q, a point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Then there will be a couple of different events in rapid succession. First will be the first stage main engine cutoff, MECO, at t plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds, followed by a major milestone within 3 seconds at t plus 2 minutes and 29 seconds, where first and second stage will separate from each other. Just after 7 seconds later, second stage MVAC engine will ignite for the first time during the flight, that is SES-1 at t plus 2 minutes and 36 seconds. Coming up next at t plus 2 minutes and 56 seconds mark, Falcon 9's payload fairings will be jettisoned. At t plus 6 minutes and 5 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin, lasting for 24 seconds up to 6 minutes and 29 seconds mark, ending the entry burn for the first stage. At this time around, we will hear the callouts for stage 1 FTS, that is the flight termination systems, being saved. The stage 1 FTS is saved, or you can say flight termination systems are turned off or disabled after the re-entry burn, while the stage 2 FTS is saved after the orbital insertion burn. We will hear the callouts for stage 1 being transonic and stage 2 being in terminal guidance as well. Next major milestone at t plus 7 minutes and 51 seconds, the first stage landing burn will commence, which will orient and set up the first stage for SpaceX iconic precision landing. At t plus 8 minutes and 13 seconds, the first stage will land on the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You supporting today's mission for its 98th time overall. And that will mark 315th landing of Falcon 9 and SpaceX 334th overall booster landing. The second stage MVAC engine will shut down, that is SECO-1, and enter into a parking orbit at t plus 8 minutes and 40 seconds. T plus 53 minutes and 53 seconds, the second stage MVAC engine will reignite for a short 1 second burn, that is SES-2, and turning it off at t plus 53 minutes and 54 seconds, that is SECO-2, which will set up Starlink satellites deployment at approximately 1 hour and 47 seconds. Here is a short time-lapse video of onboard view of Falcon 9 first stage from liftoff to a land landing. As we have liftoff surpassing the max Q point, that's when the pressure is at its maximum, we will witness the stage separation. Following that, the vehicle will rise towards the apogee before deploying the hypersonic grid fins to position and orient the first stage for landing. You may notice intermittent bursts of nitrogen gas for altitude control. Then there will be an entry burn as we re-enter the Earth's atmosphere to slow down and protect itself from the heat of re-entry. And for the grand finale, the landing burn kicks in with the landing legs deployed for a smooth and successful landing. Although today we will be having a drone ship landing, this one was a land landing which we will be seeing for the Cygnus NG-21 mission. Coming to some stats related to today's mission launch. Today's launch marks 369th SpaceX overall launch and the 54th dedicated launch of Starlink satellite for this year. This is going to be the 357th Falcon 9 launch to date. The 6th flight of this particular Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission, with tail number 1082 being in action after 46 days. Today's mission marks 74th Falcon 9 launch of 2024 so far and is SpaceX 77th overall launch of this year, including the 3rd and 4th integrated flight test of Starship and one Falcon Heavy launch. We are expecting the next 5th integrated flight test probably this month. This will be SpaceX 303rd Falcon booster reflight to date. That is the launch of a booster that has flown at least once before. '85th orbital launch for SpaceX, launching from Space Launch Complex 4 East. And this will be the 152nd overall orbital launch from this pad, that is Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base. With this mission's success, SpaceX will have a remarkable 6,851 Starlink satellites launched to date. Now moving on to some reusability statistics. This launch marks 289th Falcon 9 booster reflight to date. This will be the 98th landing on, of course, I Still Love You drone ship supporting today's mission. 6th landing of the first stage booster with tail number 1082. And with this mission's first stage landing, which leads the way to the 263rd overall drone ship landing, marking 315th Falcon 9 landing to date and 334th SpaceX overall landing to date. Well, I guess Pop Tripica, yes, it is less than 30 minutes. They are still sticking with their liftoff time. That's good for us. And if you will notice, you will see that there is a trend always on the Vandenberg flight. They are on time. Actually, they are committing with the time. Of course, they are sometime adjusting, but it's not like Cape and Kennedy Space Center flights where they are delaying for hours. Here also they sometimes delay, but whatever time they say, they do commit, they keep their commitment. So I like the Vandenberg space flights really. And yes, the footage of the fairing re-entry with the halo, of course, it's so cool. And even I like the both of them. The previous one also, which I showed, that the MBAC ignition and the fairing separation, that is also a cool one. But hopefully we could get an entire clip for the procedure on board on the Falcon 9 going on at space. I don't, maybe they are having, but I think they are. It is not disclosed to public, or else maybe people will make another Falcon 9 kind of. Anyways, keep enjoying the stream. Let's move on because we are having only 10 minutes left from the webcast to begin. So let's just wrap up with the remaining stats and move on to the webcast. Now, speaking of the drone ship landing, let's look into the stats for drone ship landing prior to today's mission. It is worth mentioning among the drone ships, a short follow-up Gravitas has a flawless record with 0 unsuccessful landing attempts and 78 successful landings out of 78 overall attempts with the recent Starlink 10-6 mission. In comparison, Just Read the Instructions has encountered 3 unsuccessful landings with 87 successful landings out of 90 overall attempts previously with Falcon 9's return to flight on Starlink 10-9 mission. While of course I still love you, supporting today's mission has experienced 7 unsuccessful landings and 97 successful landings out of 104 overall attempts with the previous Starlink 9-4 mission. This positions a short follow-up Gravitas at the forefront of the successful and unblemished drone ship landing attempts. And please note that only these drone ships landing stats which I mentioned here just now are excluding today's mission. These are prior to today's launch. Now a request for you guys, hitting the like button helps YouTube algorithm catch the drift and bring more space fan lovers and rocket buffs our way, helping us to build a community with amazing space enthusiasts like you. And also consider subscribing to us. We would be totally amazed to have you on board. Your support means the world to us, which inspires us to work more hard to provide live coverages filled with stats and thorough insights. Let's have a look into some key stats for SpaceX launches in this year, including today's Starlink 11-1 mission. With today's mission, SpaceX will have a total of 77 launches with today's launch, and out of those 54 Starlink missions, including one from today, 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 21 were non-Starlink missions for commercial and government organizations, which includes one Falcon Heavy launch as well, and two Starship launches. The recent non-Starlink missions supported by Falcon 9 was the Turksat 6A, NROL-186 mission, and previously the GOES-U mission supported by the 10th launch of Falcon Heavy. SpaceX reused booster for 72 times in those mission launches and including today's one, showing their commitment to sustainability and reusability. Now if we look into the geographical distributions, we get they have 50 launches from East Coast with 15 from Launch Complex 39A, that is Kennedy Space Center, and 35 from Space Launch Complex 40, that is from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. On the West Coast, they have 25 launches, including today's one, all from Space Launch Complex 4 East, that is Vandenberg Space Force Base. And there were 2 launches from the Gulf Coast at Starbase in Texas for the Starship's 3rd and 4th integrated flight test, now awaiting the next 5th integrated flight test. As for landings, they will be nailing it 75 times today. Most of them were on drone ships with 60 successful landings. 21 on Of Course I Still Love You, including one from today. 16 on Just Read the Instructions. 23 on A Short Fall of Gravitas. And for ground landings, they have pulled off 15 of them, 9 times on landing zone 1, 2 times on landing zone 2, and 4 times on landing zone 4 respectively. The landing zone 1 at Cape will witness an upcoming landing for the Cygnus NG-21 mission today. Now, prior to today's launch, the success rate for land landings is 98.61%. For drone ship landings, it is 96.32%, and the overall landing success rate is 96.8%. The longest stretch of successful missions in a row prior to the last mission failure, that is the Starlink 9-3 mission, is 334 back-to-back successful missions from Iridium 1 to Turksat 6A. Today's mission is the 5th launch since last mission failure, that is the Starlink 9-3 mission. Most launches in a calendar quarter to date is 36 launches in the second quarter of this year, and most launches in a calendar month is 13 launches in May, again in this year, that is in 2024. Moving on to this year's orbital launches, including today's one, United States is dominating with 90 orbital launches, including one from today, launch comprising a substantial 64.7% of global total. Recently, on August 3rd, we had a successful Rocket Lab's Electron launch for Synspective, deploying the Strix satellite. China follows closely behind, accounting for 23.7% with 33 launches, while Russia maintains a steady pace with 8 launches, with the previous Soyuz 2.1A launch of ISS Progress 88 on May 30th from Baikonur Cosmodrome, making 5.8% of the pie. We have an upcoming launch of Progress MS-28, another cargo resupply mission on August 15th, which will mark the 181st flight of a Progress. On August 12th at 10:03 p.m., the Progress MS-26 cargo resupply vehicle will undock from the International Space Station. On the other hand, Japan has 4 launches so far, making 2.9% of the pie. Meanwhile, both India and Iran entered the race with 2 launches each, contributing to 1.4% of the global total. Also, it is worth mentioning that this year's first successful orbital launch was made by India, and we have an upcoming launch of ISRO's SSLV, that is the Small Satellite Launch Vehicle Flight 3 mission on August 15th, marking India's third mission of 2024. United States and China are undeniably dominating the space race this year. Now we are having only 1 minute to go from the webcast to begin. Adding value to your viewing experience is our priority. If we feel we somewhat achieved that, please consider liking this video. It really helps YouTube's algorithm bringing in more space fans and helps others to find out this stream. We would be truly grateful for your support. Now let's just move on, as it's time for the webcast to begin. As mentioned before, today's mission is the first launch of Starlink Group 11. Well, Pop Tripika, you are impressed and we are happy for that. It makes our work and time to get worthy of something. But although it's really hard to manage these stats, every time we have to look up for that so that it will stay updated. And as mentioned, it is foggy today. And we heard the call out with we are pressurizing the tanks by adding a little bit of gas, which form up the tanks so that the clamp arms can open with a solid structure holding the Falcon 9. Once the arms are open, we start reclining the strong back.
Strong back retract is starting.
About 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9. We heard the call out that the process is now underway, and you can, although today is so foggy, maybe we will be or may not be, but the clamp lamps around the stage 2 are now coming to open. Clamp arms opening up underneath the payload fairing, the transporter erector reclining 13 degrees away from the vehicle. Now we are less than 4 minutes away from the liftoff, coming at T minus 3 minutes and 43 seconds. Everything continues to be go. We are currently chilling in the Merlin engines back from T minus 7 minutes. The strong back retract process is a slow process. We have hydraulic actuators at the base of the strong back that will pull it away. We do it slowly because there are still the lines that are carrying liquid oxygen to the second stage, as well as the electrical signals and the air conditioning up there in the payload fairing. We need to make sure that all of those are easily stretched out and all the mechanisms works good, so that we can recline strong back's position.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
That's a happy call out. We got the call out for the liquid oxygen loading for the first stage being complete. We are now awaiting for second stage that will finish up at just inside the T minus 2 minute mark. Now we are currently inside 2.5 minutes. The range continues to be green and the weather somewhat cooperated with us. Again, if for some reason we do not launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, that is Monday, August 5th, with launch window opening at 12:24 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be listening in a couple of seconds for the LOX load closeout on the second stage.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
And to call out our countdown, stage 2 LOX load is complete. All propellants are now on board the Falcon 9 with 1 million pounds of propellant. We are now venting
Ground gas closeout.
the pressure that was in the tubing on the strong back, and we got the call out for the ground gas closeout as well. That's where we bleed the pressure off, and that cold gas, when it reacts with the moist humid Pacific air, which gives that nice white cloud, an indicator of launch coming up. Next event, T minus 1 minute, we should hear the call out that the Falcon 9 flight computers are in startup and controlling the rocket for the remainder of the countdown. And for that, we got the call out already.
LD
Now,
is go for launch.
SpaceX launch director giving go for the launch. We are coming up on T minus 35 seconds. All system continues to remain go for the launch of Falcon 9 and Starlink.
30 seconds.
T minus 30 seconds. Right now it is less than 30 seconds, 21 seconds.
T minus 15. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
We have liftoff. As you saw that marvelous glow for this
And
fog
1D
around.
chamber pressures are nominal.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. We got the call out for the vehicle pitching downrange and M1EB chamber pressure being nominal. T plus 32 seconds into the flight, Falcon 9 on its way with 23 Starlinks into low Earth orbit. We are into the throttle bucket. We are throttling down the 9 Merlin engines as we
Power
prepare
and telemetry nominal.
for the period of maximum dynamic stress coming up. Good call outs there. Power, telemetry and propulsion is nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Right now we have exceeded Mach 1 on the Falcon 9. Now Falcon 9 is faster than the speed of sound as we have gone supersonic.
Max
Next
Q.
call out, Max Q. We are through the period of maximum stress on the vehicle. We have throttled the Merlin engines back up to full power. Next up, we will be having a call out for MBAC engine chill prior to its ignition.
Stage 2 engine chill.
Right now, we have started to chill down the MBAC engine on the second stage prior to its ignition just after stage separation. Coming up, 3 events in rapid succession. The shutdown of main engine on first stage, that is the main engine cutoff, MECO, followed by stage separation and ignition of second stage, that is the MBAC engine, SES-1, that will boost the payload into low Earth orbit. So let's hear the call outs.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 2 startup.
The stage nitrogen thrusters, excuse me, first let me say that we got all the 3 back-to-back milestones call outs. MECO followed by stage separation and MBAC ignition. Right now the stage nitrogen thrusters is now beginning to
Both
reorient the
vehicles are
first
following
stage.
nominal trajectories.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And as we saw, the flight computers has commanded the 4 hypersonic titanium grid fins to slowly begin deploying. We got the call out that the fairing has successfully separated. We are looking right now a view of the first stage, although it's not visible as it's a night time, which continues under the guidance of grid fins and the gravity as it descends back to Earth. It will continue to rise towards the apogee before descending back towards the landing on the drone ship, of course, I Still Love You, stationed in the Pacific Ocean. Second stage, meanwhile, in the middle of its 6-minute burn on its way into the parking orbit. So far, the launch has been great. The first stage has done its job and is now on its way back. The second stage is running at full power. We are getting good views from space, although keep an eye for the icing. Now we are getting ready for the first stage to return to the drone ship landing site. During this part of the flight, stage 1 relies completely on its green fins for steering as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. These grid fins orient the Falcon 9 during re-entry and guide the rocket during its descent. Right now we are viewing the second stage, but maybe occasionally on the left side of your screen you may notice nitrogen gas bursts from the first stage for altitude control. These are basically used to position the vehicle as it heads back towards the drone ship. Next, expecting the call out for stage 1 entry burn startup at nearly T plus 6 minutes and 5
Both
seconds.
vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Call out for good performance and trajectory of both the first and second stages. And guys, if you have noticed, today's call out people are a little cool kind of. I like the style of today's call out. They are calm. Now the next milestones, as I mentioned before, stage 1 entry burn startup, followed by stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's confirmation. We have just lit 3 of Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. As you can see, now we are rapidly slowing the vehicle down as it enters the Earth's atmosphere, and this burn should last just around 24 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And there we go. There's a confirmation of shutdown of the entry burn on the first stage. The Falcon 9 first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs, as we all know, and those are made out of carbon fiber with aluminum honeycomb.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Look how cool the callouts are. Now, as I said before, stage 1 FTS saved. It means that stage 1 has completed its re-entry burn. Sooner we will be getting the stage 2 FTS has been saved, when stage 2 will be gone through its orbital insertion burn. Next, maybe we will be hearing the call out for stage 1 being transonic.
Stage 2
transonic.
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
We heard both the call outs. We heard the call out for the stage 1 now being traveling slower than the speed of sound as it heads towards the landing. Now, speaking of landing, we are just less than 60 seconds away from that. Next major milestone will be stage 1 landing burn at 7 minutes 51 seconds.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There we go. Great shot of that landing burn with the center E9 engine now lit.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
We are slowing down the vehicle very rapidly. Should be seeing those landing legs deploy any seconds now.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Landing legs being deployed.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And there we have it. We have successfully made the 315th landing of an orbital class Falcon 9 rocket. Coming up next, we will have the second stage engine cutoff, that is SECO 1, and following that event we will enter into nearly 45 minutes of coast phase as the vehicle ascends to its target orbit. Hopefully we will get those call outs for
Stage 2 shutdown.
We got the call out for MBAC shutdown, that is SECO 1.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And these are the call outs we were waiting for. Second stage engine cutoff, SECO 1, as well as the confirmation of nominal good orbit. Today's launch marks the 369th successful overall launch for SpaceX, and the landing marks 334th overall successful landing for SpaceX. And with that, we will wrap up our coverage for now. Be sure to check out our social media handle on X for upcoming launches and updates. We want to thank all of you joining us with today's launch. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Thanks Fairmade for being with us. Once again, thanks for those resources. If possible, when you get time, please send us those additional resources about which you were talking about. And thanks Pop Tripika for being with us. And really today's launch was smooth, and I liked the way those callouts were, the glow of the fog, everything was perfect. So see you guys next time, and to everyone, we hope you all will enjoy the weekend ahead. Once again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. This is AstroYonder Live and me, Dipta, signing off for now, and we will see you next time.